Hello guys, let's get started. We are in page, lesson today is special angles, and we are in page 72, exercise 4. Looks like it. Right, now last lesson, we learned how to use the calculator. It was really easy, okay? Sine 30. Maybe let's just do that. Put in your calculator sine 30. Put in sine 30. We've done that sort of stuff last lesson. What do you get? 1.5. Okay. There are specific special angles. I'll write them here. 30, 60, 45. There are more, but this is what we start with now. And these angles you're required to remember without using the calculator. Okay? Okay? Now, sine 30, as you just noticed, is a half. Cosine 30 is square root 3 over 2. You just need to remember it. I know it sounds like, how the heck am I going to remember that? I will show you probably a little bit later in this lesson how to remember it. I'm not expecting to remember it right now, but with time you will remember it, okay? Tan 30 is 1 over square root 3, okay?
Why is it like that?
Is it always like that?
I'll explain it after we practice. Let's practice it first, and then I'll explain. Sine 45 is 1 over square root 2, and you don't need to remember the decimal place, okay? You just need to remember it like that. You'll see why later. Cosine 45 is 1 over square root 2, so it's the same as sine 45. Tan 45 is 1. This will make a bit more sense by the end of this lesson, hopefully. Sine 60 is square root 3 over 2, just like cosine 30. Cosine 60 is half, just like sine 30, which we did come across these things last time. And tan 60 is square root 3. Okay? So that's just what you need to remember. Now let's practice it first, and then later on in the lesson I'll explain where these funny numbers coming from. So I'm asked to find out what sine 30 plus cosine 45 is. What is sine 30? You can just look here. It's a half, so I'm going to write half plus. What is cosine 45?
1 over 2 squared.
1 over square root 2. But that square means I need to square it, right? Okay, if cosine 45 is 1 over square root 2, cosine square, remember that square means this is cosine square 45. When we write down the paper, what we really mean is do cosine 45 and square it.
It'd be like a half.
It will be just like a half, you're right. Because, I mean, you can use a calculator for that, but you shouldn't really, okay? What is that? It's half plus 1 square divided by square root 2 squared, which is half, as you guys say. So what is half plus half? 1. So the answer is 1. Okay? Let's do one more, okay? Square root 2 times cosine square root 45. What is cosine cosine 45? What's
1
it?
over.
So 1 over square root 2. So square root 2 cosine 45 is the same as square root 2 times 1 over square root 2. Minus square root 3. What is tan 30?
1 over 3 squared.
1 over square root 3. Okay, that's a bit easy. What is square root 2 times 1 over square root 2?
1.
It is 1. Let me just show you in case you didn't see it like Luana. You can rewrite this as square root 2 times 1 divided by square root 2. See, the square root 2 times this whole thing, okay, times that fraction is square root 2 divided by square root 2. The same thing here. If I multiply square root 3 times 1 over square root 3, is square root 3 divided by square root 3, you're right, is 1.
I did something else.
1 minus 1 equals
0.
0. So that's the sort of exercise we need to do now, and I'll just get you to do that. Just using these, what we call values of special angles. At the end of the lesson, I'll explain where these numbers came from. Okay? Let's do it. Okay, so now we're going to do something which doesn't look like it has much to do with trig, but we're going to have a whole lesson about this. It's called SIRS. We'll do that in a few lessons' time, but now we'll just do a little bit. In question B, they're asked me to prove that 1 over square root 2 is equal to something else. Now, I think I've shown you that before, but it's not something we do it a lot. Let's take a number. Let's say 2 over 5. Is 2 over 5 equal to 4 over 10?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Why is that? What did we do? How did we go from here to there?
Multiply by 2.
We didn't square it, but we multiply the top and the bottom by 2. And I can do that. I can multiply the top and the bottom by the same number, because if I can cross cancel them as well. Multiplying the top by 2 and dividing the top by 2 as well, or timing the bottom by 2 as well, is the same as multiplying by 1. And I can do it. So I'm going to do the same thing here. But I'm going to multiply it not by 2, but by square root 2. So I'm going to multiply that, the top by square root 2 and the bottom by square root 2. And you'll see why. Kind of. What is 1 times square root 2?
The answer is 1.
Square root 2. What is square root 2 times square root 2?
Square root 4. Just square root 2, sir.
2. Say that is 2, right? Square root 2 is like square root 2 times square root 2 is square root 2 squared. We're squaring it. So if I'm square rooting first a number and then squaring it, I'm getting the number. Okay, so the answer is 2. And this is, sometime instead of writing 1 over square root 2, we'll use square root 2 over 2. And it is something that you should be able to recognize. So I can, if I want to, instead of writing sine 45, instead of writing that equal to 1 over square root 2, sometime I can write it as square root 2 over 2. And that's often how you will see it. So I'm trying to train you to remember that these two things are the same. Okay, so that's just a little question there. What I'd like you to do now, okay, I'll just pause here, talk to the video. Okay, so guys, what we're going to do now, this is actually our first time we're going to solve trig equations. So a trig equation, like let's say we have a normal equation, 2x plus 3 equals 5. We've done those stuff. These are called linear equations. Trig equation, there's also an equal sign, but with the trig function. Okay? And that's actually probably the hardest bit, but today's trig equation are dead easy. Okay? So I'm looking for s. Okay? The instruction will be solve for x. I'm looking for x. X is the angle. Obviously, what kind of number we put in next to the sign is an angle. So I'm looking for the angle that if I do sine that angle is half. So what is x equal to? 30. Okay, so you look at this point, this is not in your head, but it should be written in your book. Okay? You're looking, it's just what we call by inspection. You're looking for which x, if you put that number here, the sine of what will give you half. You look, okay, it must be 30, so x equals 30. I'll just pause here to make sure you understand this basic thing. Okay, right, next one, tan x equal square root 3. What is x equal to?
30.
It is 60, right? It's not 30 because tan 30 is 1 over...
That's 60.
Yeah, that should have been 60.
Yeah, that's 30.
Otherwise, we have 30. Okay? So, tan 30 is 1 over square root 3, but Jordan says correctly, she knew what I was going to, what I was meant to write. Okay? So, tan 60 is square root 3, so x must be equal to 60. Are we happy with that? Now, things will be a little bit more difficult, okay? So here I've got sine 2x equal half. Go on, Twingo. What do you
multiply?
At this point, I can't multiply it because it's in the bracket here. So what I've got to ask myself, first of all, I want to know what x is equal. But initially, I need to know what 2x is equal. What will be 2x equal to?
Also, 2x will equal 30, sir.
Good. That's all for now, okay? So Luano said, sine what will give you half? Oh, we already answered that question. It's sine 30. So it's not x equals 30, it's 2x equals 30.
And x equals 15.
And now you're right, Twanga. Now we can divide by 2. I can't get rid of this 2 right now because it's inside the sign. Now I'll divide by 2, and I'll get x is equal 15. Are we happy with that? Let me just pause. Hang on. Right. So a quarter times sine 4x equals square root 2 over 8. Now at this point, you might be looking square root 2 over 8. I don't have anything like that here. You can't see any square root over 2, square root over 8. And you won't, because I still have that one. I need to get rid of that quarter. What should I do?
Take it to the other side.
How?
By dividing.
Time by 4 or dividing by a quarter. It's the same thing. So I'm going to time it by 4. To get rid of that quarter, I must get rid of all the stuff. I just want to have sine. Okay, so time by 4, I'm going to have sine 4x. Okay, what is 4 divided? I'll write it down. Okay, I'll go slowly. Times 4. Now I can cross cancel. 4 and 8 will be 1 and 2. Now we'll rewrite that. Sine 4x equal square root 2 over 2. Now, you remember initially, I didn't have that square root over 2. I had 1 over square root 2. Remember? That's how it was in the beginning. Then, we had the whole exercise where I showed you that 1 over square root 2 is equal to square root 2 over 2. That's a really important one. In fact, when we finish here, not now, but when I finish the video, I want you to copy that somewhere. Very, very important. Because as you can see now, I don't have 1 over square root 2, but I have square root 2 over 2. And that's the same thing, okay? 1 over square root 2 is equal to square root 2. The same thing as 1 over square root 3 is, what is 1 over square root 3? Square root 3 over 3. There's a few more, but these are the main ones you'll need.
So then
Okay? So whenever you see one of those, you know it's the same as that. Whenever you see that, you'll see the same as that. So I can write down sine 4x equal 1 over square root 2. It's the same thing. Okay, so what does that tell you? How do I solve that?
4x equals 45.
Good one, Buzzer. 4x equal 45. Okay? And that means x equal, now we need the calculator.
11.25.
For that you can use a calculator. Okay, guys?
Go, boys.
I'm just going to pause here for a second.
Stop just.